I'm gonna leave this meeting so being recorded.
What? That wasn't part of the deal. You signed a
I
contract.
didn't consent to being recorded.
What? You signed your rights away so I can use your likeness and image with all my AI generated things. Okay, well, I have put the timer on. Hello, everyone. This is a very exciting and special episode of Bookalicious with a lot of firsts. This is the first time we have a guest, well, where it's let's see, where both presenters aren't family members. Because we've had one non-family member guest on before. Well, okay. What I
I've been
mean
on
is
the
not
podcast
siblings.
before.
When have you? Oh, that's right, you
I
were.
was on with Sam.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, we have a returning podcast host. Everyone, welcome back, Josh, who you know and love.
No, Chrissy, I am the last resort. So that's why I am a very rarely on the podcast.
Well, okay, so as part of my birthday gift to Candy, that we would not miss a week. Dedicated listeners will remember from last week, Candy said, it's just one episode. Can you do it? Can you fill in? And I said, not likely. But she was so dedicated. And I said, I need to do it. So anyway, so yes, I will admit, originally Sam and I were going to do an episode. Sam is a more recurrent podcast host on the show, but we weren't able to make it work. And then Josh saved the day.
Like, can you believe that? I have to talk to my wife for 45 minutes.
Well, okay, in my intro, I was gonna say this is a first because, this is the first time you're the co-host. But the other first is that this will be the first time Josh has ever listened to a Bookalicious episode and heard both parts of the conversation.
That would be true. That would be true. I get half of every podcast that Chrissy creates. So I got half the podcast. So if you listen to more than 50% of Chrissy's or Andy's podcast, then you've listened to more than me. So congrats.
No. When asked why he does this, he says, I already have to listen to you 24 hours a day. Why should I add that with a podcast? I said, fair.
Well, I'm very excited to be here today.
I'm glad. Well, yeah, so it is a very exciting day. Another first for this episode. This is the first time we're doing a nonfiction book. It's pretty big. Yeah, so in my hour of need, I messaged Joshua and I said, Josh, you want to be an esteemed guest on Bookalicious? And he said, I've been waiting for this day. But all he reads is his doctor books. And so I said we could do a kid's book that we've read, like Chronicles of Narnia. We could do anything. He said, what about doctor book? He said, doctor book or bust. And I said, okay, fine. So we're reading a doctor book, but only one chapter. So we get to go in depth the Bookalicious way. And actually, it's great. I'm really excited.
Yeah. And so compared to all the other podcasts, this one will be very monotone and boring and incredibly non-fictional.
Candy will be appalled. She'll say, I appreciate the effort that
So
all of
I
our listeners
apologize
have
to
left.
Candy in advance for all the episodes. Yeah, losing listeners and stuff going forward.
Yeah, we're going to check our stats next week and we'll have lost everybody. Or maybe we'll gain a new audience. Who knows?
Maybe,
Okay.
maybe.
But either way, we're on a time crunch. So we got to get the show on the road. So, welcome everyone to Bookalicious. This is a podcast where normally two sisters chat about books we're reading, but today it's me and Josh, husband wife duo. I'm Chrissy.
No, I'm Josh.
And today we are reading what is it called? A tale The Dueling Neurosurgeons. What's the full title? It's like a 20 word.
So it's called The Tale of the Dueling Neurosurgeons, the history of the human brain as revealed by the true stories of trauma, madness, and recovery.
You can already
So an
tell it's a page
incredibly
short.
thrilling introduction.
I know. All of his titles are like a paragraph long.
Written by Sam Keen the author of the national bestseller, since I know this podcast is about New York Times books, but that doesn't mean it's bestseller. This is bestseller.
Oh,
So
that's
the
true.
people buy this book and they love this book. But the book that he's known for is called The Disappearing Spoon.
I'm intrigued by
So I don't
that
know how
title.
it relates to this one, but it's a very entertaining author.
It is good. Have you read any of his other books?
No,
Yeah,
I'm
me
not.
neither. Would you, okay, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but would you want to read another one of his books?
I think so. I think so.
All right.
I would say if you like short stories, these are the books for you.
Short stories
Because
as
each
in,
chapter is almost like a separate short story, you know.
yeah, I think that's true. And if you like narrative history, because I think that's a lot of the books he writes. So this is like history of neurosurgery, but he makes it fun,
Yeah, I would
right?
agree.
I would think so. Okay, well, actually, this is a great segue. So we're going to show Josh all of the games we play in Bookalicious since he's only heard my side of the conversation. The first game we play is not really a game, but Candy always does the author recap. And so, in her honor, I did an author recap. Do you know anything about Sam Keen?
Other than what I just told you, no, not much.
Okay, well, honestly, there's like nothing online. So it was very easy to do this author recap. Okay, his Wikipedia had three facts. Fact number one, any guesses where he's born? We're gonna make it into like a trivia game.
Pennsylvania.
Pretty close, South Dakota. I kind of
Oh.
put those in the same category.
Oops.
Okay, he was born in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he studied two things in undergrad and has a master's degree in another subject. What do you think he studied in undergrad?
Two things.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I think he studied philosophy and biology. I think his
Oh,
master's is in communications.
okay. You know, you're in the right ballpark for pretty much all of those. Okay, so in undergrad, he studied physics and English literature at University of Minnesota. So went from South Dakota to Minnesota, and then he did his master's degree at the Catholic University of America in DC, and he got it in library science.
That's wow.
Yeah.
That was a master's degree. I've actually been to the Catholic University of America.
I know, I thought you'd
I
find
had a
that
couple
interesting.
lectures there. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you maybe could have passed by Sam Keen.
Perhaps so.
Maybe so. Okay, well, so on the note of library science master's degree, on his website he doesn't really have a bio. There's like nothing about him. But then you click this link about get a secret fact, and so I clicked the link, and I was like, I don't know where this is gonna go. I could have downloaded a virus, who knows? But it turns out it's his unofficial bio, and so I'll read that, and this is all the details on Sam Keen on the entire internet. Okay, so it says, I'm assuming he wrote this. He wrote, Sam Keen gets called Sean at least once a month. Honestly, I do always want to call him Sean because his name's just mixed together.
What did I call him? Oh no. I did call him Sam. Okay, good.
Yeah, or I want to call him like Sham Keen. Yeah, I keep mixing his name up. Okay, so he gets called Sean at least once a month. I get that. He grew up in South Dakota, which means more to him than it probably should. He's a fast reader, but a very slow eater. He went to college in Minnesota and studied physics and English. At night, he sometimes comes down with something called sleep paralysis, which is the opposite of sleepwalking. One of his books appeared in an iPhone commercial once. Right now, he lives in Washington, D.C., where he earned a master's degree in library science that he will probably never use. He feels very strongly that open faced sandwiches are superior to regular ones. The end. That's it.
Sounds like a pretty normal good dude.
I know. Honestly, I feel like I know him a lot better now. He sounds pretty cool. I'd be friends with Sam. I almost called him Sean. Okay,
I would
so
want to know what was the biggest thing he learned from getting a master's in library sciences. I think you need one of those to be a librarian, though. So I think like every librarian gets one.
isn't
Um,
that
but
wild?
I want to know what the biggest thing he learned was.
Yeah, I want to know what is the curriculum for library science? I don't know. It sounds like he doesn't seem to find it very useful at this moment in his life.
Well, they talk too loud in class, they probably get shushed, you know.
Oh,
So it's not a very conducive learning environment.
they have to mime it all out. It's actually etiquette school for libraries. No snacks, no loud talking. It could be helpful. Yeah, well, maybe there was a if anyone's curious and wants to learn more about Sam, there's a Reddit thread where it was an Ask Me Anything with Sam Keen. And so people asked him anything. So they might have asked about library science because I, for one, am very intrigued by that. So I
Good
don't
to
know.
know.
Yeah. So there you go. Okay. So there's the author recap. That's kind of one of our games. Our second game is judge a book by its cover. Do you know what we do in this game?
Judge a book by its cover.
Yes. We look at the cover of the book and we say, would I pick this up and read it based off the cover? Okay. So can you describe the cover to us?
Well, it has lots of words on it, as we
That's
mentioned
right. It
at the
has a whole
start
title.
of this podcast. And then it has two hands with two kind of I think like quill pens. Is that what they're called? Ink pens.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Like the feather.
and no, it's not the feather, but
Oh,
it's
wait. Yeah. I see it
the
now.
pen that has the point at the tip.
Yeah. I don't know what those are.
And it's drawing or it's playing tic-tac-toe on the head of a person. And the person's just kind of like silhouetted. There's not a lot to the person.
Yeah. It's just like an outline of
Um,
them.
it looks a lot like something that someone would like the outside of it looks like something from the like 20s, you know, with the
Oh,
lines and
yeah.
the coloring, you know, type system. So
Kind of does. Okay. So would you pick it up? Would this pique your interest?
I have to confess, I did pick it up. I don't know where I got this book from. I don't even know where I got this book from. Um, but I picked it up and then it was on my shelf for probably like 4 years. So
That long, really?
yeah, it's been in my bookshelf for a while.
Wow, I'm glad we brought it all the way from
So
Texas.
I know it's been there for a while. So I'm not really sure. But yeah, it piqued my interest enough for me to pick it up.
Yeah. I like this cover. I would be interested in it. I think I would definitely pick it up. I don't know what the back says. I don't know if that would entice me enough to actually read it. But I do like a good narrative history thing.
They're hard to come by, but
Yeah.
it is very interesting. When someone does it well, it's a good read.
Yeah. I agree. We read another book called The Butchering Art. That one was really good. Highly recommend.
Oh,
We
y'all
should
read
read.
that one on the podcast?
Well, no, you and I read it.
Oh yeah, that would be one of the best. That's if we're getting into the nonfiction world, I would highly recommend that book.
Honestly, that one was really good. It's just wild. That one's a history of surgery and like antiseptic technique, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And that one was really good. That's by Lindsay Fitzharris. I would read another book of hers for sure. Yeah.
yeah. Well, if you want the stuff from the back, I can read it to y'all real quick.
Okay, sure.
It's praise for the tale of the dueling neurosurgeons and Sam Keen. And the first one is from Amy Stewart, author of The Drunken Botanist. So that already piques my interest. And it says, this is Sam Keen's finest work yet, an entertaining and offbeat history of the brain populated with mad scientists, deranged criminals, geniuses, and wretched souls. The Tale of the Dueling Neurosurgeons is one of those books that will have you following your friends around, reading passages out loud until they snatch the book away from you and read it for themselves. And I have to agree. Good luck getting it back. Second
That's
one
a
is
good
from
review.
Michael Schwab, National Public Radio. And it says Keen is one of America's smartest and most charming science writers. Honestly, sounds like kind of bland.
That was a whole review.
I know National Public Radio might not survive, but it's because of reviews like that, you know. I
Need
know
some
it's
more
politically
spice.
dicey right now for NPR. And the last one's from the New York Post, and it says science is made fun whenever best-selling author Keen is narrating. Also kind of bland, but the first one would have piqued the interest enough, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, the other one had a good amount of spice. Okay, she wrote The Drunken Botanist. I want to know who these people are. How do they get into this field? How do you learn this history? How does this happen? Because I'm like, that would be a fun. Honestly, I don't know if I would enjoy doing all the digging to find the history, but I enjoy reading it. And I maybe could have fun doing the work too. That could be a fun career choice.
Yeah, his works cited is like at least 10 pages. No, even
Sounds like
more.
a lot of
Like
work.
13 pages. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. You have to read a
Well,
lot.
I could be interested. I don't know though. Sounds like a lot of work to do that.
Like one of the
I'm a little less
references,
interested.
one of the references is outcomes 18 months after first human partial face transplant, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, 2007.
Wow. Yeah, you really have to go digging through the archives.
Yeah, so I think you have to be pretty good at reading scientific literature to write a book like this.
Yeah, well, maybe. I'll keep it on the list, but it moved down a little bit after you told me about the works cited.
Christy's getting flashbacks to when she had to do that for a very nice but incredibly unorganized professor back at Baylor. Was it?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, that was a little rough. But that's okay. We've made it this far. Okay, are you ready to get into the book?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Josh has selected one chapter that he said was his most very favorite. It was the best one in the entire book. He actually didn't say that. He just said it was an interesting one and one he had read recently. And it's like, I don't know, chapter 18 or something called Honest Liars, something like that.
Yeah, it's chapter 10,
Oh,
Honest Lying.
Honest Lying. Yeah, there you go. So if you have the book, that's the one we're talking about. And maybe our summary will motivate you to buy the book because it's a good one. Okay, so chapter 10, Honest Lying. So how each chapter is set up, he has like this topic of neuroscience, at least from my understanding. He has this topic of neuroscience, and he goes through all these anecdotes about like how did we learn this, and like what are all these interesting cases about this thing. And so this chapter is about memory and confabulation. And so it's people who are confabulating all these stories, but it's because they have this something's weird in their brain. So they're lying, but they're honestly lying because they don't even know that they're not telling the truth. So he goes through the whole history of how this was made. So I was thinking for our episode, he has a lot of stories in there. I chose three that I summarized that we could talk about. We could also talk about other stories, but this will just kind of get us started. What do you think?
Like, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
I would like to start just with a brief introduction with how he starts each chapter.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
kind of
yeah, do
unique.
that.
I haven't read a book like this. And so Sam likes to start each chapter with a rebus. So a rebus is a puzzle that involves piecing together pictures, letters, and sounds to form a hidden word or phrase. Now, Sam has some easy ones and then he has some hard ones. Fortunately, he doesn't put the answers in the book. It says you have to email him, which is too much
Gosh,
work. But I want to know
a
the
lot of
answers.
work.
But it's simple, like a simple one that he has as an introduction is B, and there's a plus, and there's a picture of a cloud with rain. And so if you saw that,
Oh,
what
I know it.
word would it be?
Brain.
Rain. Yeah. So that's pretty
Rain.
easy.
Yes.
Yeah. The one for this chapter is also I think pretty easy. And it has a hippo and then it's a plus sign. And there's a scene where there's trees and a campfire and a tent. So a camping scene. And there's another plus sign and there's a picture of the United States.
I felt
So
pretty
if you were
smart
to
on this one.
so if you were to piece this one together, what would it be?
Hippo, camp, us.
Yeah, hippocampus. Yeah, both these are not. I feel representative of some of the ones he has in here. Some
Some
of
of
them
them
are
are
pretty
really
tough,
hard.
but both these are. are interesting. So
Okay.
that's just a fun aside. But
That is
let's
a
get
fun
into it,
intro.
Chrissy.
Oh, okay, well, one quick note on that. A little life hack. You want to know where else the answers are?
Where?
Reddit. Everything's on Reddit.
So someone emailed him and posted the answers on Reddit? No, I guess
I
they
don't know,
probably
or they
figured it
figured it
out
out
themselves.
themselves. Yeah. I'm sure someone has emailed him. I would want to know. They're pretty fun. But yeah, some of them are really hard. So,
Oh, there you go, guys. Answers on Reddit.
and yeah, there's the answer key. So, yes, but this one we cracked the code on this one for this chapter. Okay, getting into our summary. So, chapter opens and he's kind of going over the history of how we started learning all this. And he starts by talking about British prisoners of war in Japanese camps during World War II. And there's this one camp called, oh, I didn't look up how to pronounce it, the Changi camp. Does that sound right?
Changi.
Changji. Yeah, that sounds right.
Changi. Changi. That sounds right.
Well, Kangi.
Yeah, Kangi. Let's call it
Let's call
Kangi
it
to
Kangi Camp.
see it. This
Camp
sounds
Kangi.
very similar to probably what you went through as a child growing
I
up in
know.
Camp
Katie's
Kangi.
gonna be so offended. She said this was my birthday gift. You choose a boring book. You make me the villain. Okay,
No, she
so
would love
there's
it. She would love it.
yeah, she'll have all the honor. Okay, so they're in Camp Kangi, and this camp happened to have a lot of doctors imprisoned. These are British doctors, but they had to work as doctors in this camp. And they worked as doctors that they weren't trained to be. So they were anesthesiologists, they were surgeons, they were whatever they needed to be at the time, even if that wasn't their background. But that's how it was. Okay. The doctors realized that the Japanese guards were kind of treating this as an experiment camp. And so some of the things they would do would deprive the prisoners of one nutrient and just see how their brain decayed. Crazy. Um, as during this or like within Camp Kangi, there was an outbreak of beriberi in 1942. And this is a disease, if you haven't heard of it, that's actually named after a sheep. Because when you get beriberi, you get this weird shuffly gait that's kind of like how sheep walk. And we now know this is caused by a deficiency in B1 or thiamine, but at this moment, no one knows that. Okay, so in Camp Kangi, there's two doctors, the Wardener and Lennox, and they're British doctors working in this camp, and they start doing autopsies in secret and collecting brain tissues from the beriberi patients. So they're like, no time to waste. Science still has to happen. This seems like the perfect time to do it. Okay. A year later, in 1943, De Wardener and Lennox get moved to different camps. But they were like, we can't lose all this data we've just collected. So they decided to split their tissue samples and paper records between them. Lennox took the brain samples, but they were destroyed in a train wreck. De Wardener
Guess they
took.
didn't build that railway very well.
They were too busy autopsying everybody. Oh my gosh. What happened here? Okay, yeah. So train something happened. All the I want to know that train. There was a whole train wreck, and everyone's like digging through the rubbish. What did they do when they found all the brand samples? They're like, "What the heck? What's been going on here?" Okay, who knows? That one was not detailed in the story. But anyways, the other guy, De Wardner, he guarded the written records with his life for 2 years. But then he got to a point where he thought, they're going to find out. The guards are going to confiscate his papers. And so then he called up his metallurgy friend to create a 4-gallon box to hide his papers in. Then he wrapped this box in a cape. And then he put this wrapped box in a cape and he buried it 3 feet deep in a fresh grave and then left the body on top as a guard. He said, this will do it. Okay, so you might be wondering, why were they going through all these extreme lengths to keep these records? Was this really such an important thing they were doing anyways? And the answer is yes, because at the same time, there was something called Korsakoff syndrome, which was frequent in alcoholics, and that was known to be linked to B1 deficiency. And both Korsakoff and beriberi led to victims confabulating or making up stories. This is how it's all connecting to the neuro part. And so these doctors in the Japanese prison camps, their records provided evidence that beriberi is also caused by a B1 deficiency, just like in Korsakoff disease, and it leads to similar symptoms of Korsakoff. Okay, so now you want to know, did the secret burial work? Answer is yes. So when the war ended in 1945, so what is that, 2 years after he buried it, De Wardener's friend went up, dug up the papers, and according to the story, I don't know if this is a stretch, but it said that the papers survived by a matter of days. So the cape had already rotted and the corpse had disintegrated, and the papers themselves were like on the brink of disintegration, but they got it just in the nick of time. And then they're able to publish this groundbreaking, haha, work in 1947. Okay, so that's the intro story. What were your thoughts when you read that?
Um, well, I think it's a crazy story. Um,
It's wild.
he has lots of anecdotes in here that I thought were kind of funny. But I mean, like it's a real life story, which is I mean, tragic story. But it's definitely, I mean, what came out of it was interesting. But yeah, I mean, it seemed like a really bad situation. But never leave a bad situation for any doctor. Every bad situation's a chance for discovery, I guess.
Oh
That's the
my
story of this book. And
gosh. People
so
are
that's my interpretation. Yeah, for any doctor in a bad situation's a chance for discovery.
people are
Um,
being starved. Perfect time for an experiment.
yeah. Yeah, perfect time to experiment. Um, and so yeah, that's my thoughts
Well,
on
it
it.
is kind of interesting because there's stuff like that that happened in like the Nazi Germany camps too, where like they were doing all sorts of experiments, and and now that's how we know about all these things. Like they did a lot of awful experiments on hypothermia, where they like put people in these whatever through all the situations, study like what does hypothermia do to the body, and those are awful experiments. But also that's like the only way we know about hypothermia. So like it's led to things that have ended up being helpful, but it's just such an abhorrent way to get it. I don't know. It just makes the whole thing uncomfortable. Uncomfortable isn't the strong enough word, but yeah. But it is kind of thing where it's like, okay, well, now we know this thing. We can't unknow it. So I guess we'll use it. I don't know. Yeah, and I guess maybe they're just making the best of a bad situation. It's not like they were the ones depriving the prisoners of nutrients. It sounds like just they tried taking care of people, and when they died, they did an autopsy. Maybe
Yeah.
that's not so bad.
I mean, that's how you learn observation, you know.
I
So,
guess that's true.
and that's what these two doctors did.
Okay, what were the Japanese guards thinking though? Because like this had to have taken time, and this couldn't have been their job, right? I mean, maybe it was. I don't see why they were able to keep the samples though. Like I don't know. I just have a lot of questions of why were
So
people okay with
it
this?
was 100,000 British POWs. So it's a big collection of people. I think they had
Okay.
their own kind of autonomous like living area for a little bit. Um, and so I don't think they were intentionally deprived of the nutrient, but because white rice was affordable, is why that was the main ration for
That's
prisoners.
true.
Yeah.
That was at least part of it. In the beginning, they did say that they're doing experiments depriving them of nutrients. I think berry could have just been an accident because yeah, they're just eating white rice and it didn't have B1, so then everyone ended up getting
Hmm.
berry. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean that's probably true too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Some of
this.
my,
Oh
oh
no, you
yeah.
go.
So some of my fun takeaways were for the Japanese, and they said some doctors faced beatings and threats of being boiled in oil if they didn't cure enough soldiers to meet work quotas. Now, as a medical resident going through residency, I feel like I can relate to that,
Oh my
but without the burning of oil.
gosh.
But you better discharge this patient by this day, or that's the end of it. Um, and then there was another thing about when we talked about the difference between brown rice and white rice. They're like brown rice has all the nutrients, and which is why I guess we should all just eat brown rice. But they said they call white rice polished rice. I mean, talk about marketing right there.
I mean, does that
Polished
sound pretty
rice.
good?
Yeah, like that was great. But we all know brown rice is better for you. So
Do you want to
those were
eat grimy
interesting.
rice or polished rice? Those are your options. And honestly, berry, that's such a cute name for a disease. It's like I wouldn't be
Yeah,
scared of
it kind
getting
of is.
berry.
Berry. Yeah, it's
I
fine.
know, I'm like so cute.
And then to treat this, so very super interesting. It's the like a part of it, like the Korsakoff aspect, which maybe we'll talk about later, takes a while to kind of recover from. But the acute symptoms of beriberi, so like the staggering gait and the like confusion, that can happen pretty like recover pretty quickly if you like substitute vitamin B1. And so they found out that hibiscus is
Oh,
supposedly
wow,
high
that
in
was
thiamine.
funny.
And so they said that some doctors sent men to gather thiamine rich hibiscus leaves as well. And so the smarter doctors lied to men and claimed that hibiscus would pump up their libidos for when they got back home to their gals. And then he says, after that, troops, no doubt, could not consume enough hibiscus.
That was
And you know that this
hilarious.
has left an impact because I don't know about you, but anytime I've gone to Panera Bread, the hibiscus tea is always almost empty. Now I know why.
You think everyone's trying to up their libido?
Subconsciously, maybe they recognize. I don't know. But the
Gosh,
hibiscus tea is always
it's because
low.
it's delicious
Delicious and people, I guess, maybe think this. I don't
and
know.
effective.
All right, those are my takeaways, Chrissy. Whatever you have.
Those are great takeaways. My only last note I had on this was a plug for a podcast I mentioned to you, and it came up in a conversation recently with some other people too. I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, but anyways, this whole experiment thing reminded me of a Malcolm Gladwell episode on his revisionist history podcast where he talks about the Minnesota starvation experiment. And that's a wild time. But the 30-second summary is that it was, I think, World War II. And there's all these pacifists who didn't want to join the army. But then the US was like, hey, you can still help the war effort by being a part of an experiment. So then we'll learn about starvation and how it affects the body. And then we can rehab the people who come back from all these prisoner camps. And they're like, perfect, we'll do it. Okay, so then they starve these people for a year and they see what happens. And I know. So basically, his whole point, or one of the points from the episode, was like our our ethics of scientific research have changed a lot, and so there's a lot of experiments you can't do. And he was like, but also now we know a lot about nutrition. So we did gain some valuable things from this experiment, but we couldn't do it again. Very interesting podcast. Would recommend. Okay, we have 12 minutes left. I know. I told you this would be so fun. Okay, so the next two stories I had pulled were HM and Solomon Shereshevsky. HM is one of the big ones in the chapter. So I say we start there, and if there's any other anecdotes and stuff, we can pull those out too. Um, okay. So I'll start summarizing our HM guy. If I'm missing any details though, feel free to jump in. Okay.
Okay.
So HM, so throughout the chapter, he goes through case studies. HM is one of his big ones. HM, he was hit by a bicyclist when he was young and cracked his skull. He started having epileptic seizures after this, and they got so bad that he dropped out of high school and got his diploma at age 21. So basically, he had to quit school and move back in with his parents and just kind of get like a job in town. HM was desperate, so he decided to get a hippocampectomy. I don't think that's a word, but I was trying to make a word. He got his hippocampus removed um, by a Dr. Scoville. Scoville had done the surgery before and it had reduced people's seizures and they didn't have any side effects. However, he also never followed up with his patients. So it's always good to ask clarifying questions of your doctor. So, anyways, HM gets the surgery, and this time Scoville actually follows up with him. And what happens changes neuroscience. So, also during the surgery, Scoville decides to remove not only the hippocampi, because you have one on each side or something, So he removed both of those. Then he also removed the amygdala and other structures. It doesn't really say why he did that, but he did it.
That would definitely violate all the laws today. That's what I say, that if you don't put it on the consent form, you just start chopping stuff out. Uh, it's no bueno. It's not good.
This is crazy. All these stories, I'm like, what the heck happened? And this really wasn't that long ago. This was in the 40s also. That's crazy. I want to know Scoville's credentials. This is wild. Okay, so that's what happened. That's a surgery. And then HM, he wakes up and he's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. His seizures all but disappeared. After that, he only had at most two a year. His personality was the same, but it turns out his memory was totally gone. So he had a few big memories from his past still in there, but he forgot most of the others and he couldn't retain any new memories. So they ended up studying HM forever. He becomes like the poster kid of neuroscience. Everyone wants to come visit him and study him. And we learned a lot from his life. We learned some of the things they learn are about declarative memory versus procedural memory, long term versus short term memory, lots of things. We could talk about it or not. But basically, how this all ends up is HM could never really get a job because he didn't have any memory, had to live with his parents his whole life. And he ends up dying in 2008 in a retirement home. He died in 2008. That is so recent, which is crazy. Okay, and then this is what I mean, this story just kept getting wilder. This part, I was like, what? So before he died, all the nursing staff, they started stockpiling away ice packs. And they said, we're going to need these. And then he died, and then they packed his head with ice to preserve his brain. And then they said, all right, guys, deed has been done. Come take him. So then all the, I don't know, whoever, the scientists or who are those people who work with cadavers?
Like
The,
a anatomist or
yeah, sure. Whoever would do this, they came and they removed his brain, then they preserved it. They sliced it into 2,400 thin sheets to form a digital map of his brain. And this whole slicing process was broadcast live online, and 400,000 people tuned in to say goodbye to HM. What? I think that's wild. Every part of this. This is one where I was like, where was any of the consent here? Did he agree to have his brain taken out? I guess he wouldn't remember agreeing, even if he did. So I guess it's a little tricky.
I don't know.
I don't know.
You'd have to have someone consent for it. So he probably had like his mother or father before they passed consent,
Man,
or a family member consent on his behalf.
that's so sad. But it's just so sad because his whole life kind of just turned into like a giant experiment. I found the story sad.
It is kind of sad. And the author kind of says that as well, I think. You know, that his life was never the same.
Yeah. Yeah, he has an interesting line where he says something like when you lose your memory, you also lose your identity or you lose your sense of
Hmm.
self.
Hmm.
And I never thought of that, but I'm like, you know what? You're exactly right because you are shaped by your experiences. And so now he has no memory of his experiences.
Yeah.
Can't learn and he can't retain anything either. I feel like that's the craziest part.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think there's like a line that's be drawn between like utility and then still like recognizing the person
yeah.
in medicine, and I think that line was towed pretty well in the case of HM. Um, but I mean,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's not, you know, and so
I know. Okay, so you think it was towed pretty well. So they were able to like work with him and like he was able to be a part of studies and stuff, but they still valued him as a person.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know the full story of HM,
That's
but
true.
from this case, I mean, like the first scientist that worked with him for a half a century. So someone doesn't do
That's
that
true.
to an individual for half a century and not develop some sort of personal relationship, especially if they're living at home with their family and stuff like that. It's just not possible.
That's a good point. Okay, that's true. Yeah, okay, that's good. I was kind of feeling like though it's like his only use to these people was as like a like lab rat basically. And if that stopped, he was like, actually, I don't want to do this. It's like I feel like people would value his life as zero because he can't really do anything. You know, I don't know, but also you're right. We don't really know anything about the story. So this did though remind me of a book that we've read on the podcast. I don't think you've read, but I think you'd really like it because it kind of talks about these like medical ethics kind of things. It's called Flowers for Algernon. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't.
It's super good. Free PDF online if you're interested. But he was also kind of a case where he became like center of a study and everyone was super interested in him. But then once he lost his part in that study, he was like thrown to the side kind of thing.
That's
So
sad.
yeah, it was super that book is actually really sad. It's a great book though. Yeah. Okay, one other note from this. So this Scoville guy, it said he did his lobotomy or his brain cutting, whatever, with a $1 drill.
So Chrissy, it's not a $1. Well, maybe it cost $1 in 1953. I don't know.
Okay, what was it? What
Inflation.
did it say?
But
That was
no,
my note
no,
that I
what a
wrote.
$1 drills a $1 coin-sized hole.
Oh, I was floored. I said, "Who is this guy? Where did he get this drill from?"
So it just can
That's
be
so
quite
funny.
resourceful. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow. I didn't get that. Okay, I was so right before this, I was looking through the book, taking some pictures of the pages because we only have one book. Josh has the book. And I saw Josh had starred that. And I said, oh, we're totally going to talk about this $1 drill he used. 'Cause Josh was also floored.
well, my note next to it is what? That meant that I had to go look it up and see what it was, just because I also did not know.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny. Well, now you can mention it to people and say we should use our $1 drill. And they say, Joshua, that's unethical. And you say, no, it's a type of drill, not from the dollar store. Okay, what other, do you have any other notes for this story? Any other thoughts, takeaways? What'd you think?
Um, I mean, if you're like a neuroscience nerd, it's pretty interesting. The case that like here this surgeon removed the hippocampus, and so all of a sudden he's like he can't remember anything after the experience, can't remember anything after like 5 minutes. But like the first experiment they did was having him kind of basically trace a star using a mirror between two other stars. And he did it, and of course the first time was super hard, and he forgot about it after the tester left. But apparently did this like 30 times. So I don't know. That's a lot of trips. This poor PhD student was just
I know.
taking the train. It says they
At
says
3
they
a.m.
would 3 a.m. and then doing this test. So, but eventually, like he could do it. And then apparently they quoted HM here and they said, "This is funny. I would have thought it would be rather difficult, but it seems I've done it pretty well." And I think that's pretty crazy. And so they talk about the difference between declarative memory and procedural memory and how they use different pathways in the brain. Um, and that's just interesting because it like started this whole research on the difference between knowing how and knowing what. It's like basically muscle memory, and it
That was
kind of
super
explains
cool.
in layman's terms like the foundations for muscle memory, which
Yeah.
is pretty important because you might have people that are like not really great at other types of tasks, but something that requires like repetitive skill, like I don't know, even like carpentry, like that's a different
Yeah.
type of training than knowing how to be a carpenter.
Interesting.
So this is interesting. Um,
I thought that was super
so
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, he has
they
some
also.
other. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
No, 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 you
Okay, this one is relevant to Chrissy, so I have to say
go.
it.
Which one?
So this paragraph says, all the while HM got older, at least physically, but mentally he remained stuck in the 1940s. And so this is important because then they started asking him uh words that like came after the 1940s that he never
Oh.
would know. And one of those words is granola. And my wife, she lives on granola. She makes her own granola. It's so good. I can't eat this up with the store ever again. But if HM was Chrissy Sessa Baker, she would, I don't know, she wouldn't be able to survive. Granola. She's a granola.
No, maybe my life would be changed. They'd introduce me to granola. I'd say, "Oh my gosh, this is so good." Then I forget about it. But they would keep it in the pantry. And so then every morning I'd go in and they'd show me the granola. And then my procedural memory would take over. And then just by muscle memory, I'd wake up and go get my granola in the morning. And I wouldn't know what I'm eating, but I would just know it's delicious.
Maybe every day would be like bliss, you know?
That's so funny. Okay, so wow, so that word was really just invented then. Okay, so I gotta be honest, when I read the word granola there, I was thinking like crunchy granola, you know? But that's how we use it today. You know what I'm talking about? Like people like
Yeah.
hippies, crunchy granola. But I
No,
just looked
I
up,
think this is referring to like the food.
you're right. No, I just looked it up on Google and it's like 0% use until I can't tell what year this is, but like 1965, 1970 maybe or something. And then it skyrockets. And now everyone's using the word granola. Fascinating. So, yes, I think that's when granola was invented.
Wow.
That was a great
Fun
year.
fact. There's another line in here where they say how he spent most of his days. And he does say that despite his amnesia, he retained a lifelong love of guns. It's a little concerning, I'm not gonna lie. But it also says that he would most of the day, he lived most of his days peacefully, doing crossword puzzles or working through the clues methodically or flipping in front of the television, watching either Sunday Mass, good for him, or old movies that would never become classics. And that then I was like, well, I'm having this podcast with Chrissy. And I don't know about you, but I think I have a opinion that's not very popular, and that is I don't really
Oh.
like The Office. I just think that I don't like that type of humor. I don't know. So I think it's kind of boring. And I know
Hot
Chrissy
take.
can basically recite The Office because she watched it so many times. And I was like, well, if I would have to be an amnesic to watch it that many times. That's what I thought.
No, it's okay. So what would happen if you were an amnesiac, if you had amnesia watching The Office and you're watching it and as you're watching it, you keep getting this visceral feeling of disgust. You're like, I hate this so much, but you keep forgetting about it. But would you kind of develop this thing of every time you hear the music, you would start getting that like reaction, or would you forget that?
No. Well, actually, later in this book, they talk about it.
They do. Yeah,
The
I thought that
bell
was
with the
interesting with the
mouse.
mouse.
Yeah.
Mouse
Hmm.
was really interesting. But like, would that apply to him? Does he have that
Probably.
issue?
Probably.
I don't know. That's interesting. Wow. I thought that story was going to go a lot of ways. I thought you might say that I also have amnesia and don't remember movies and haven't seen any classics. Because that's also
No,
true.
no, no.
Okay, should we move on to Solomon? Or do
Yeah,
you
let's
want
do
to cut it
Solomon.
there? All right, let's do Solomon.
Just real
Okay.
briefly. Solomon's pretty interesting.
I know these are both so cool. Okay, so I picked these two because they're kind of contrasting stories. So HM, he had no memory. Solomon, opposite problem. So Solomon Shereshevsky, he has a photographic memory. He reminded me, we've been watching Suits. He reminded me a lot of Mike Ross, people who've seen that show.
So good.
So good,
I
super
could
good.
watch Suits 3 times over. So good.
I know. Well, we're only halfway through, so I guess we'll see how it ends. But so far, yes, very good. Okay, so Solomon Shereshevsky, he has a photographic memory, and he worked as a reporter, and he never had to take any notes because of his memory. And one day, his editor gets really mad at him because Solomon wasn't taking any notes in a meeting. And then Solomon repeats the whole meeting back to him verbatim. And then the editor is half impressed and half creeped out. So then he sends his employee to a neuroscientist named Alexander Laria. And I'd be so offended if I were Solomon. He sent me to not even like a therapist, which like I don't know, maybe there weren't a lot of therapists back then. He sent me to a neuroscientist. Like you're a freak. I I don't know. It doesn't
Like,
say how
yeah, I
Solomon
think
felt.
the equivalent would be like your work having a like mental health hotline and your boss, because they probably can't do that now because of whatever laws like force you to go to mental health, like reiterating it over and over in a meeting while just staring you down, feeling like this exists, you
Oh
know.
my gosh. It's part of your benefits package. You should definitely use it.
You're not getting your full benefits package if you don't use it, you know, trying to sell it.
Honestly, yeah, I think that kind of is the equivalent. But back then, he could just send him down to the neuroscientist. Okay. So Solomon, it turns out, had something called excessive synesthesia, which means he associated everything with the senses, which allowed him to remember everything so perfectly. So, for example, the number 2 was a high spirited woman, number 6 was a man with a swollen foot, and the number 87 was a stout woman cozying up to a fellow twirling his mustache. So, whenever he heard something, he would just start picturing it in his mind like this, like automatically. He didn't even try to. I thought this was interesting. He could also induce physical changes by just remembering something. So the book said that he could raise the temperature of his right hand by remembering a time when he was near a hot stove, while lowering the temperature of his left hand by remembering what ice felt like. I thought that was wild. Okay. The curse to this, though, is that, well, there's a few. So, one is that he couldn't stop his imagination. So, things like reading a book was just so overwhelming because he's getting all this like input, and his input is like times a million. So, it's just too much. Um, or he had all these associations that were negative, and it just like canceled out a lot of things in the world. So, for example, certain sounds were awful to him. So, he couldn't eat anything with mayonnaise because the Z sound in mayonnaise bothered him. So, I don't know what else that affected. I'm sure it was more than just mayonnaise. But anyway, sounds tough. And so, anyways, even though he had the opposite issue as HM, he lived a life nearly as befuddled and helpless as HM. So he also couldn't really, he ended up not really having a job at the end. It said he wasn't a great journalist, but like that seemed like that could be a pretty good route for him. But basically, he tried all these things. He tried going in this like circus, basically, where he did all of his mind tricks. But then it just kind of became like overwhelming, and I don't think we really know how he ends up. But anyways, one of the last lines to the story says that a memory that's too good is just as broken as one that's no good at all. I thought that was interesting.
Like it's the like too much of a good thing is a bad thing, you know.
Yeah, I could see that in this case. It sounds like his life was pretty tough. I know. What do you think of Solomon?
It reminded me of one of the guys at Word that I have that is not allowed to answer questions anymore at noon conference because he always does the answer. He's like a genius.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But it took him a long time to figure out how to write like notes and stuff like
Oh,
that. So everyone, it seems like the brain has like a maximum like capacity, and if you
yeah.
like are super super good at memory, like other things might fall by the wayside.
Oh,
Uh,
that's interesting.
yeah, so I don't know, but I think it's super interesting in the story. And it's only a couple of pages in this chapter, but if it interests you, there's a whole book kind of based on it that I
Oh,
references a lot that I read before this. It's called Moonwalking with Einstein, and it talks
that's
about this
right.
case of excessive synesthesia. And essentially, the whole idea behind it is that you have to like kind of use all your senses to remember whatever it is that you're seeing in front of you. So it like describes here like what what the numbers made him feel like. So like the number 2 became a high-spirited woman, 6 a man with a swollen foot. The number 87 became a stout woman cozying up to a fellow twirling his mustache. So they're vivid. Sometimes they're like even a little risque, but that's what helps make them vivid. And so in this book, Moon's Walking with Einstein, they talk about basically these memory championships. And there are these people who have to do these different memory tasks, whether it is like remember like 400 numbers in a row or like I don't know, X number of names in a row or decks of cards in a row, and they have championships around the world. And the author is this normal dude like you and me who decides to try to do it. And one of the memory experts kind of shows him how it's done. And the concept is like by forming this memory palace. And then you associate these images with these numbers so you know what they are, and then you deposit them in your memory palace, which is like something that you know very well, like a street, like your hometown. And then you walk down the street and you deposit each image on your walk. And then you remember your walk, and then you can recall the the, the thing you're trying to remember. And it's super cool. And the normal author ends up placing very well at this memory championship, somewhere in England, in the book Moon Walking with Einstein. And honestly, it's a lot of work for sometimes a little gain, but it's just an interesting way to think like how memory works. And they mention here in these chapters, like if this guy ever made a mistake, it's because he deposited the image in a dark alleyway. And so it was an issue of perception. And so he would skip that number on accident. And most of us would be like, oh, it's a minor lapse. But in actuality, it was just a lapse of perception on his thing.
That
And
was fascinating. I was thinking for that one as like, could he pull out a flashlight? Would that work for his memory
I
palace
don't
thing?
know.
I don't
I
know.
don't
I
know.
I know. Okay, that's super interesting though. So yeah, so it sounds like you can train yourself to have this great memory by training yourself to add in all these senses when you're trying to remember things. Like you can become a synesthete or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so question, but Solomon was just one naturally. Okay, so question for you. Have you tried doing that and has it helped
Yeah, I
after
did
you read this
actually.
book?
So I was reading
Oh,
this book. This was while I was in my last year of med school, and I had finished, most of my rotations and matched. And so I was just looking for fun things to do and extra ways to make money. So I enrolled in this study at UT Southwestern because my wife said I couldn't enroll in the study where they test a drug on you. Because I had a
uh,
friend doing that and they made like $7,000. But anyway, I guess it could go
oh
terribly
my
wrong. And they
gosh.
locked you up in a hospital for 2 weeks. So I mean, was it really worth it for the $7,000? I don't know.
Okay,
But
this crazy medical stuff's still going on. Continue.
but this study was pretty simple. It was like the effects of corticosteroids on depression, and I was going to be a healthy control. And so I had to do these memory tests, and I had to do these functional MRIs after taking placebo and a corticosteroid that relatively safe. Anywho, one of the tests was recalling all these like random words in order. And it was right after I had read this book. And so I would place the
Oh.
images on my home street that I grew up on, like going on a walk. And the research coordinator was like, "Wow, you did a really good job at that task." So I
Really?
don't know. I don't know if it helped or not, but maybe I totally skewed their study though because I was studying this when they're probably trying to make me be in control. So who knows what happened? But
They say this drug is really messing with people's memory.
yeah,
No one's as good as Josh.
yeah. What's going on? And I thought it was helpful. I thought it was helpful. It was like the question is like how practical is it really? Like, when do you need to remember all these things for? Like perhaps if you're
Yeah,
doing a surgery and you gotta remember the steps or something procedural or I don't know, um but yeah, it's the time I tried it.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like it could help a lot. And actually, when I was teaching middle school, they talked about memory palaces and they talked about this memory technique because I think it's like, I mean, I don't know, it's a classical school, so I'm imagining Aristotle started this. I have no idea. But um but they were using it as a study technique. So like I feel like it could be applicable in a lot of things or even like remembering names. I honestly don't know how it works, but I feel like if you just got into if you're just doing this regularly and anytime you learn new information, you're like stocking it away in your memory palace, like you'd remember everything. I don't know.
So you would think the issue with the excessive synesthesia is then all of a sudden all the memories start bouncing around your head and you basically get overwhelmed, you know. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
that was the issue with this guy. But I think it could be very helpful. I think the concept of the memory palace does come from like ancient like times, like Greece, maybe even Aristotle. I don't know. But the whole idea of memory, like oral tradition where things are
Yeah,
passed down orally, the way people
that's
would
how they
help
remember.
remember those stories is by forming the memory palace.
That's
And
interesting.
and that's why they were passed down, hopefully pretty like similar, they wasn't written down, so it was just oral repetition.
Yeah.
So
Interesting,
yeah.
interesting. Wow. Okay, so I have a few questions. One of my questions is, would you rather have HM's problem or Solomon's problem? No
Oh, definitely
memory or super
Solomon's problem.
memory? You'd rather have Solomon's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't
But
know.
I would have HM's problem if I had a great wife like you to take care of me
You'd eat granola every
though.
day
I just feel like
until you
HM's
remember.
problem, that's unfortunate, but HM's problem is how you end up, in a nursing home and then at the age of like 30 and then no one's taking care of you.
I
I mean, at least if
know.
you're in excessive like synesthesia, you can still like you're probably kind of weird, but you could probably still somehow sustain yourself and have some
Yeah.
independence.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It sounds like he was struggling a lot too, though, with that. We didn't get a lot of detail. We didn't get as many details on his life, so I don't really know what happened. But it seems like neither of them could really get a job in the end. Although Solomon had a few more job opportunities. But it's also interesting thinking about like, well, which one was happier?
Oh, it's
HM was
true.
living a great life. He loved his life, it sounds like. And it's like, well, HM would probably, if you asked HM, like, are you happy? Do you like living? He'd probably be like, yeah. And then he'd forget you asked. But Solomon, he might be a little bit more, frustrated with the situation. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if that means you'd rather be
So
HM
so
than
which
Solomon.
one so which one would you be
Well, I
end of the
also think
day?
I'd rather be Solomon. But I don't know. Maybe is that just us wanting to still be able to like be independent and be in some sort of control? I don't know. And that's not a
I don't
bad thing.
know. We'll
Um,
leave we'll leave it we'll leave the thought provoking question there. What's the next one?
ooh, well, okay, actually, that was my main question. I had a question on the oral tradition thing where I was because it reminded me of something at the end of the book where he talks about how the memories that you recall more often, you end up kind of switching them a little bit. So you end up suppressing certain details or bringing out certain details that like makes it more like kind of convenient or like better for you. And so some of the events that are most critical in your life, you end up changing the details the most because you recall them the most. And so then I was like, what if that happens with oral traditions? People are like changing it. But that's not so much as an interesting question. But I did think that idea was really interesting. And one of his last lines in the chapter says, memories are memoirs and not autobiographies. And the memories we cherish most may make honest liars of us all. And I thought that was really interesting. And it reminded me of this book that I started listening to on audiobook. And it was called, I think it was called like The Art of Memoirs or something. Because I read a memoir and I was like, this was so cool. What if I wrote a memoir? Turns out I can't. She said, you have to have a good memory. So, so but anyways, but she talked about this where she was like, you write memoirs, but everyone is fibbing some of the details, like either on purpose or accidentally. And she had this one example of this guy who like was telling this, recalling this critical point in his life. I don't even know what it was, but basically it involved him and one other person, and the other person pulled out a gun on him and like threatened to shoot him. Something like really traumatic like that. But it turns out that he got it all flipped. And the actual thing that happened was he pulled out a gun on the other person. But in his memory, he totally switched it around. And like he swore that was the truth. But he just, his memory, he redid it. And I thought that was super interesting.
It's crazy.
I
Yeah,
know.
we skipped over a part of the book, but when we were talking about the very disease, the star, he talked about some of the condition that happens if you have prolonged like lack of thiamine, the vitamin, and that's called Korsakoff syndrome. Korsakoff syndrome is when you confabulate. So that's where you unknowingly, supposedly make up lies. And he gives examples. And one of the examples is an individual who's an alcoholic. And he makes up this lie where he says something like an imp. I don't know what an imp is. Do you know what an
Oh,
imp
like a
is, Chrissy?
little like troublemaker.
So yeah, he says this imp keeps breaking into my house, like drinking my alcohol, and so I kicked him out into the snow, but then I felt bad about him. And I clothed him and I called the ambulance. And this confabulator saying he's an alcoholic. But turns out the actual story is he was imp. And so the
Oh.
psychological basis is for this like reordering of the memory is like a self-defense mechanism. And
Mm-hmm.
so like to defend his own ego, he projected himself on another being and he's confabulating it. So he believes this confabulation, but actually he's telling his own story, you know. And then
That's
and
super
so like
interesting.
and so like the whole concept of confabulation is you have to know that there's a gap in your memory. You have to know you don't know it, but then your brain somehow you unknowingly
Fills
your
it
brain
in.
is making up plausible lies, and so it's like honest lying. So you don't know when you ask a confabulator a question if they're telling you the truth or if it's a total like made up thing.
Yeah, and they don't even know.
And they don't even know. And so that's the whole like the reason behind the title, like honest lying, like it's really interesting. And then they talk at the end of the chapter about this experiment with mice. And so they say that when you have a memory, so you go through all the processes in your brain, you form the memory. But when you re-experience something related to that memory and you bring that memory up, you don't actually like bring up this like concrete block of text. Like in your head, you re-experience the memory. And so by
Mhm.
re-experiencing it, you have a possibility to re-experience it wrong and then corrupt the file. And there's this experiment with the mice, and basically the mice hears a beep, and then the mice get shocked, and then that same mice, and it hears the beep again, runs around frantically thinking it's going to be shocked. It's like Pavlov's, law or whatever,
Mhm.
and it makes sense. But they found out that there's this protein involved in like remodeling the brain associated memory. And what they did is they shocked a mouse after the beep, and they injected this protein or a molecule that inhibits the protein. And then they do the beep again, and the mouse isn't scared. So that the mouse can't retrieve or relive that memory or whatever. And I'm probably butchering the science, but basically it's like, oh, wow, like if there's an issue in this protein, then the memory is corrupted, like you can't relive it, rehearse it the same way. And so,
That's so crazy. I don't
it's
get how
pretty
memory
wild.
works because it's just like all these electrical signals. At least as far as we know, like that's what's happening. It's the same way how I don't know how a computer works, which I know I guess the brain and computer are like compared as an analogy a lot. But like the computer is just all these zeros and ones or whatever, but now we get a picture. Like how does that happen? But I guess it's the same thing with the brain. We have all these electrical signals. I'm like, how do I have a full memory of how I feel? Can you explain that one, Dr. Josh?
Well, if you want an incredibly accessible way to explore these questions and more, I highly recommend you read The Tell of the Dueling Neurosurgeons by Sam Keen. I think,
Sean
Chrissy, this is a
Conn.
great, yeah, Sean Khan. This is a great way to wrap up this episode, and we'll hear all about the. You can read all about the Kangi camps and everything like
Camp
that.
Kangi. I think that's one of my favorite parts of this.
And if you're exceptionally interested, he cites all these studies, so you can go read them for yourself.
That's true. Yeah, 13
So
pages of works cited. It could be yours. I
So
think that's a great ending. Wow. Well, this was so fun. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, especially in our hour of need. I thought this was so great.
it's a lot of fun.
Will
Happy to
you be
be
back?
here. I'm sure. I'm sure. Kengi
Yeah,
Kengi likes to go on international trips now that she's well established, in her career.
professional.
So I'm sure there will be times where you will need assistance with this
That's
podcast in the
true.
future.
I'm sure we'll eat through our rations again. To go through them about every few weeks.
All right. Well, this is
Yay.
this
Well,
is
thanks for
Josh
potting.
signing off. Happy to be here. I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna go talk to you off camera. So
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
bye,
Thanks for
y'all.
joining our club.